Hi, I'm Lena, and welcome to Super Data JP, the channel where we turn Japan's real estate and cost of living numbers into answers you can actually use. Every video here is built on verified government data, not opinions and not guesses. Whether you're planning to invest, relocate, or just curious what life in Japan really costs, you're in the right place. Let's get into today's numbers.
The exchange rate your bank shows you when you send money home isn't the rate you actually get. There's a markup baked in before the fee even shows up on the screen, and almost nobody sending money out of Japan realizes how much of it disappears before it lands on the other side. Second video in the Money Mechanics series for foreign residents in Japan. Last time, IDACO and what happens to it when you leave. This time, what it actually costs to move your own money out of the country in the first place. Most people compare remittance services by looking at the fee line alone. That's the wrong number to look at. The bigger cost is usually hidden inside the exchange rate itself, not the fee. Japan's megabanks charge a flat wire fee of roughly 6,000 yen to 7,500 yen per transfer, take 2 to 5 business days to arrive, and often add correspondent bank charges on top that you don't find out about until after the money's gone. On top of that flat fee sits the real cost, a 2 to 4% markup over the actual mid-market exchange rate, applied silently to every yen you convert. On a large transfer, that markup alone can dwarf the advertised fee. Each megabank prices it a little differently. MUFG charges 0.05% of the transfer amount as a yen exchange fee, minimum 2,500 yen, while SMBC bills a flat 2,500 yen upfront, with up to 4,000 yen more charged later if the correspondent bank's own cut runs higher than expected. There's a further wrinkle with bank wires specifically. Correspondent and intermediary banks along the route often deduct their own cut directly from the amount in transit, so the recipient can receive less than expected, and the exact deduction usually isn't known until the transfer has already gone through. Digital-only banks undercut the megabanks on the flat fee, some as low as 4,000 yen. But the same exchange rate markup usually still applies underneath. Cheaper sticker price, same hidden spread. Fintech transfer services work differently. They use the actual mid-market rate, the real one, with no bank markup added, and charge one transparent fee instead. Wise's total fee runs roughly 0.4 to 1.5% of the amount sent, arriving in 1 to 2 business days. On a 100,000 yen transfer, that works out to about yen 600, 900 total, fee and exchange rate combined. A middle option, SBI Remit, charges a 2,000 yen withdrawal fee plus a 0.1% exchange fee, minimum 1,500 yen, cheaper than a megabank, still more than a pure mid-market fintech transfer. Speed differs too. On top of cost, bank wires typically take 2 to 5 business days through the SWIFT network, while fintech transfers usually clear in 1 to 2 business days. One more reason to compare services directly instead of defaulting to whichever bank already holds your account. Concretely, someone sending 300,000 yen, about $1,852, a common benchmark for a monthly remittance supporting family back home, comparing a megabank wire against a fintech transfer every month. Through the bank, a flat fee plus the exchange rate markup adds up to roughly 16,500 yen in total cost on that single transfer, even though the fee line alone looked much smaller. Through a fintech transfer at mid-market rates, roughly 2,250 yen in total cost for the exact same 300,000 yen transfer. That's a difference of about 14,250 yen, about $88, on one transfer alone, just from choosing where you send it. Keep sending that amount every month for a year, and the gap compounds. 198,000 yen spent on fees and markup through the bank versus 27,000 yen through a fintech transfer. 171,000 yen, about $1,056, saved over 12 months, without changing how much actually reaches home. This matters most for anyone remitting regularly, supporting family back home, paying down a loan in another currency, sending tuition, or moving retirement savings out of Japan gradually instead of all at once. A one-off transfer barely notices the difference, a repeated one compounds it fast. Choosing where you send it is the part you control. What happens after the money leaves Japan is a separate question entirely, and Japan's tax authority is watching more of that side than most people assume. Every remittance you send or receive doesn't vanish quietly. Cross one specific line, and your bank is legally required to tell the tax office. 1 million yen. Send or receive more than that in a single overseas transfer, and your financial institution must file a kokugai soukin to chosho, an overseas remittance report, directly with the tax office. That threshold used to be higher, 2 million yen when the system started, cut in half in 2009 specifically to bring more transfers under closer watch, a one-way tightening, not a temporary rule. The report itself isn't vague, it names you specifically, your name, address, and my number, the recipient's information, the amount, and the stated purpose of the transfer. Staying under that line doesn't make a transfer invisible either. The tax office can still investigate smaller transfers under its general audit authority. The reporting threshold just determines what gets flagged automatically versus what would require someone to go looking. If the money you're sending is a gift to family rather than your own funds moving between your own accounts, a second tax question opens up entirely. Japan's gift tax has a 1,100,000 yen basic exemption per year. On top of that, living and education expenses sent to a dependent are exempt, but only when spent close to when they're needed. The trap, bundling years of living expenses into one lump sum, left sitting unspent in a foreign account, risks reclassification as a taxable gift. Keep receipts and statements showing the money was actually spent on what it was sent for: rent, tuition, medical bills, not left parked in a foreign account waiting to be used someday. None of this relies on Japan simply hoping you'll self-report either. Since 2017, Japan has participated in the Common Reporting Standard, an automatic exchange of financial account information between tax authorities worldwide. In one recent reporting round alone, Japan's tax agency sent account information to 64 other countries and regions, covering 550,705 financial accounts, and received similar data back from dozens of jurisdictions in return. Your bank account abroad isn't as private from Japan as it might feel, and vice versa. Practical steps: compare the total cost, not just the fee line, before choosing a transfer method. Expect a report to the tax office on any single transfer over 1 million yen. Keep documentation if you're sending family living expenses. Don't bundle years of support into one lump sum, and don't assume smaller transfers are invisible just because they're unreported. Next in this series, crypto taxes in Japan, one of the harshest systems in the world for anyone holding digital assets. The advertised rate is never the real cost, and the fee line is never the whole story either. Compare total cost before you send, and remember that the tax office sees more of this money than most senders expect. Quick recap: banks typically cost 6,000 to 7,500 yen plus a 2 to 4% markup. Fintech transfers run 0.4 to 1.5% total. The tax office reporting line sits at 1 million yen, and our model case saved 171,000 yen a year just by switching where the transfer was sent. That's what sending money out of Japan actually costs, and what the tax office actually sees on the other end. Subscribe for the rest of this series on money mechanics in Japan.
And that's today's breakdown. If you're serious about real estate or moving to Japan, research like this is exactly what separates a smart decision from an expensive mistake. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive, and drop a comment if there's a city or word you want us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.